First off, a huge thanks to Maximilian Dude, as his videos where he discusses the ending of Remake are the main inspiration behind this, and I pretty much took his thoughts and tried to compile them into one concise video about the ending of this game. And because of the nature of it, of course, there's spoilers. So turn away if you know nothing about Final Fantasy VII or its compilation. So that's the warning. Go now, or unless you don't care. But you've probably already played Remake already. So on with the video. Throughout the marketing of Final Fantasy VII Remake, it was evident that Sephiroth was going to be more prevalent in the Midgar section of the game than in the original. It's been 23 years now since the original Final Fantasy VII released. Everyone who knows video games knows who Sephiroth is. Everyone knows the major spoilers to the game, and that just comes with time. So it makes sense that Square Enix would assume that the players know who Sephiroth is, and the game was told to be a remake of the events up to the party's escape from Midgar. So they chose to portray Sephiroth as a character who's evil for the sake of evil, like that of Darth Vader in Episode 4 compared to his appearance in Episode 5, with Sephiroth's motivations to be explored in the next installment. Sephiroth isn't in the Midgar section of the game, at least physically. You only hear mentions of how he was a great war hero, and then you see his Masamune and President Shinra's back. And that was pretty much it. But with all this added Sephiroth in Remake, the question can be asked, what exactly is he up to, and how do these whispers of fate tie into all of this? What is Sephiroth's endgame in Final Fantasy VII Remake? Sephiroth never appears physically in Remake, which is exactly how he appears throughout the original game, where he is just apparitions on clones with Genova cells or visions in Cloud Strife's mind. But in Remake, it's quite obvious that Sephiroth appears more often, and it makes sense. You can't have the first part of a series of games where the main villain doesn't even appear. You need that threat present. So Sephiroth appears to Cloud long before he's supposed to, right after the bombing of Mako Reactor 1 in Chapter 2. And this vision causes Cloud to walk down an alley, engulfed in flames, resembling the Nibelheim incident. Now the Nibelheim incident is the event that left Cloud so scarred and caused all of his breakdowns and headaches in the original. And his account isn't even the true account because of the trauma left upon him. But in Remake, Sephiroth knows Cloud's account and torments him with this knowledge he didn't have in the original. After seeing visions of the incident, Cloud follows a vision of Sephiroth, who, after stopping in an alley, goes on to have this exchange with him.
You're not real. You're dead.
I am.
I killed you with my own...
Oh, you need not remind me. It was the crowning moment of our time together. But that was then, and this is now. I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly. Silently. Painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud. Were the planet to die, so many things would be lost. Your hometown that burns so bright. The sound of her voice, pleading for me to spare you. The shiver of her flesh, yielding to cold steel. That which binds us together would be no more, and I would be loath to live in such a world, which is why I must ask you this one favor. Don't Don't worry. It's a simple thing. Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live.
You bastard!
Good, Cloud. Very good. Hold on to that hatred.
Now, all of this is just a complete and utter distraction, a filibuster, if you will. And I'll come back to that because it seems that every time Sephiroth shows up in Remake, it's to do something different from the original game, or to change things from the original. Now, this is only the first example where Sephiroth appears to meddle, but there's always something there to put the story back on track. The Whispers of Fate. Throughout the marketing of Remake, before we all knew the true ending of the game and we were expecting it to be a faithful yet expanded retelling, we were all concerned about the presence of these knockoff Dementors. It was a new addition, and I was concerned because, as shown in the trailers, Cloud doesn't run into Aerith on happenstance, like in the original. His attention is drawn her way because of them. And then, when the game came out, throughout the first 17 chapters, they were a nuisance. They literally blocked me from gathering materia in the church. They were aggressive and they didn't mesh well with the game as a whole, but they were also changing things to the story. Now, with Sephiroth, he was changing things and no one batted an eye, because it was cool. It was cool to see Sephiroth doing Sephiroth things again, but the ghosts weren't cool, so they didn't mesh well. And I believe that this was purposeful by the storytellers and the developers. When Red 13 gives the explanation of the Whispers in Shinra HQ, he describes them as harbingers of fate, as protectors of the timeline. And during the battle with the Harbinger in Chapter 18, when the party receives a vision of the ending of the original game, Red 13 explains to them that what they saw is a glimpse of tomorrow if we fail here today, thereby suggesting that the ending we've known for 23 years is the bad ending, at least from what the party knows. We know that the planet is a living being. It protects itself. When Meteor hits the planet at the climax of the original game, it reacts. It combats it. The life stream healed the planet, and 2,000 years ago, it created the weapons to protect itself from the virus that is Genova. And because the ending of the original game, an ending where there are no more humans alive to bleed the planet dry of Mako, it would be a bad ending, of course, for the party, for humanity, but it may not be the bad ending for the planet per se. So why wouldn't the planet have the defenses against alterations to the timeline? Wouldn't the planet want the story to end where there are no more threats against itself? These countermeasures with no limit of time and space, as shown that these whispers surrounding Midgar as the party is escaping, are there when Zack is ambushed in the flashback. And these countermeasures are the Whispers, of course. Given with what I said about Aerith and Cloud's initial meeting as an example, these Whispers are interfering with the plot of Remake to ensure that the timeline of the original remains intact. Sephiroth distracted Cloud by taking him down an alleyway, and after this traumatic vision, Cloud just keeps walking down the street. He doesn't think to turn down Loveless. Yet something catches his eye. Aerith at the corner, waving her arms about like she's in trouble, immediately grabbing Cloud's attention. Aerith, of course, is frightened by the Whispers. If it wasn't for them, Cloud would have never met Aerith, and the story would be drastically different from the original game. The Whispers were there to make sure that, however aggressive their tactics may be, the original timeline is intact. Everything Sephiroth does is in opposition to these Whispers, even leading the party to fight them so that they don't let fate bound them. It seems obvious that Sephiroth knows about these Whispers, and now this coming claim may seem impossible, but trust me, when I first heard it, I thought it was insane as well. But then I thought about it, and it makes sense. Sephiroth is from the future. This is a Sephiroth post-Advent children, who has, through Jenova, come back to change the flow of the timeline. Think about it. He knows what events play a pivotal role in Cloud's story, meeting Aerith on the Sector 8 plate, going on the Mako Reactor 5 bombing mission. He attempts to change these events so that what was his history, his failure at the end of both the original game and Advent Children, is no longer inevitable. He guides the party to the singularity and invites them to challenge their fate, because if they challenge theirs, his will also be challenged. Now, there's empirical evidence to support this, of course, as during his boss fight at the end of the game, he spouts his infamous one wing, something that in the original compilation of Final Fantasy VII, he never does, except during the events of Advent Children. When you take into account Sephiroth's motivations in Advent Children, he puts it very clearly in the now famous line, "I will never be a memory." He will live on, in one way or another, but not as a memory, and not in that timeline. This Sephiroth, through Jenova cells, or something I'm sure will be explained in future installments, went back in time to ensure his survival, and, if his aspirations were greater, his victory. Because at the time when Remake is taking place, the physical body of Sephiroth is still crystallized in the northern crater, and he only appears through visions and clones because of the cellular nature of Jenova. Being the son of Jenova, Sephiroth can manifest his form upon what are called Sephiroth clones, which are humans injected with Jenova cells. Everything injected with them are connected, which leads to Hojo's correct theory about reunion. Cloudstrife himself was injected with Jenova cells during his tenure in the Shinra Mansion after the Nibelheim incident, which explains why he is so affected by Sephiroth throughout the original game and in Remake. And with Sephiroth from the future, it explains why Cloud is given visions of the future, or at least the future of the original timeline. The main vision being that of Aerith's death. Sephiroth is taunting Cloud with a horrific vision, thus giving him more and more reasoning to challenge his fate. As Aerith says at Destiny's Crossroads, everything about Sephiroth is wrong. He isn't meant to be here, and he knows more than he should at this point in time. He is wrong.